Now we're talking about party composition and how this will affect the difficulty of your encounter. Now, what we mean by party composition, in an ideal world, your party will be balanced. So it will have the melee, the range, the spellcasters. In a happy world, you'll have a healer, but that doesn't happen all the time. Sometimes no one will go healer because no one wants to be the healer.
Or you've got your half heals.
Well, yeah.
I've got a healing spell that,
Some classes can dip into healing, but they're not made for it like a cleric is. Clerics or druids are really good at healing.
Yeah.
But one thing to keep in mind is if they're not balanced, then they're skewed to some degree. Now there might only be one spellcaster in a party of 4 or 6. That's certainly going to affect if they have heals, if they're going to be able to counter spellcasters effectively, and crowd control. So if they're able to manage large mobs of enemies like hordes, are they going to be able to wipe out like low hit point creatures that are just aplenty? Or they might have more spellcasters and melee, and enemies are able to get through because they're overwhelming the front line and getting to the back line, and the spellcasters can't do anything because they're being attacked. So keep in mind that I think very rarely have I ever been in like a properly balanced party.
Yeah.
And when you make an encounter, keep in mind the strengths and weaknesses of not only the individuals but the group as a whole. Because you might have a normal encounter, but because you've completely forgot, these creatures are really good at mobility and melee.
Yeah.
And half your party, or majority of it, is backline.
Yeah.
That's going to be a deadly encounter, and you may not have intended it to be that way.
Yep.
So much like terrain, it can be something that, whether or not you know it, can be taken advantage of.
Yep.
On the other hand, with party composition, players are going to have a great time at certain things because the party composition isn't balanced. For like spellcasters, if the enemies have majority spellcasters, that's going to be an interesting fight. Whether or not your spellcasters are good at dispelling or counterspelling, and your party is great at it.
Yeah.
Or it might be a front line, and they're able to stop and use saving throws, which typically melee fighters aren't good at, or like frontline. That tends to be a weakness against like wisdom, charisma, or intelligence saving throws, which typically remove them from combat because they can't do anything.
Yeah.
And this, depending on how well they roll, this can be a brief time or for the majority of the encounter, and that can massively affect how easy it is. So try and balance encounters while keeping in mind how your party composition is.
Because I've seen an encounter where it's mainly melee people and the DM has chucked flying creatures, and you're like, with that party comp, there's very little survivability.
How do we take on an encounter which we have no ability to deal with?
We're throwing our swords at the flying creatures.
If we throw enough, hopefully we'll get them.
Well, I think the way we got out of it is we all climbed up the trees, and then we waited for them to get into the tree line, and then we grabbed onto them as like a group and just dragged them one by one, stab them, and then keep doing that until eventually they...
Yeah. What I find, one thing in party composition is, as a DM, it's fun to find how your party act as a party.
Yeah.
So you'll find first sessions, everyone will be trying to find their feet. Over a period of time, the front line will find their front line. Your mages will find that niche part where they like to stand, and that opens up for you as a DM to go, right, so now I've got a party of mage hunting cats that are really good at getting into the back line. So they'll go the front line, but their mates will come from the side. Clever girl from Jurassic Park, and they'll come in and they'll go after these people that have been sitting at the back the whole time, all comfy, just casting spells, protecting their front line. You as a DM then get the option to start toying with them. So don't forget as a DM to keep an eye on the party composition, see where they get comfortable, and then look for those creatures that play with that comfortable scenario. You know, if you've got a whole heap of, you know, mages and one front line, take out your front line and what are
Watch
they left
the
with?
cookies crumble.
Watch the yeah. So have fun with the party composition. I mean, obviously, like you've said, it's very easy to overwhelm a unbalanced party with an unbalanced creature or stat stacking as such. So be very aware of what you're choosing.
Yeah.
The flying, for example, is terrible
Also
to go
the-
against.
Yeah, the
all
healer
melee.
thing, the no healer option or half healer can definitely screw with
Yeah, yep,
party composition, because I've played campaigns where the main healer was a paladin,
yep.
and that's hard because they only have like, they don't have any range healing, they only have touch healing, and if you, as a paladin or a frontline fighter, if the mage behind you is getting,
Going,
as you
yep.
said, swarmed, you'll be like,
Yep.
not going to leave my post,
I can,
because
yeah,
if
I
I
can't get out.
move, they're
Yeah.
I
dead.
can't move because the front line will collapse.
Yeah.
But if I don't
You
move, the
my
mage,
backline, yeah.
the mage is gone.
Yeah.
And
So,
then
yeah.
their casters have got at me. So it's
Yeah.
always it's a hard balance to
Yeah.
get the CR right to be able to mess with your players or as players
Yeah.
to deal with what they do.
Yeah.
But that's where your fun lies in D&D as a
It's
dungeon
certainly
master.
fun to challenge or
Yeah.
be challenged. Because if you keep it all at a safe, comfortable level, everyone's going to get comfy and eventually there'll be no point doing combat because there's
They have
really
a one
nothing.
maneuver. We are
Yeah.
the tank.
Yeah.
And once the tank is broken, we are out of plans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's fun to lull them
Oh,
into
yeah.
that false sense of security. Have a dungeon where it's the same, you know, a couple of creatures come out,
Yep.
they take them down. A couple of creatures come out, they take them down. They start to get into this rhythm and then change it up totally on them. And then they're like, oh shit, you know, what was at the front is now at the back. What was at the back is now at the front. And they're
Yeah.
not prepared for it. It's good to see your party scramble. But just remember to
It's
be...
certainly good
yeah.
to teach them to improvise or help them, you know,
Yeah.
put into situations where they have to improvise. Because that's where the best combat I've ever been in is where I've had to think on my feet real quick.
Yeah.
And I've
Yeah.
had to make decisions where party members could die or have died.
Yeah.
Because I'll certainly never forget the encounter where I had to let my dearest friend die, otherwise everyone would die.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One encounter that one of my DMs run was a dungeon where the corridors like a labyrinth were changed.
Yep.
So we would often say, oh, you know, barbarian at the front, fighter there, healer, mage, and then a fighter at the back. And that he would segregate the three groups.
Yep.
And they, you know,
Yeah,
and then you got the
there's-
mage and the fighter who are like, we have no healing. Scattering like possums, like, oh no, oh no, oh no, oh no, oh no.
Yeah.
You know, and then you have the healer with the healer with the fire that's like, we got no mages, and then you pull them like,
Yeah.
or you got the two front lines and like, we can't do it.
Yeah. Look,
We got tank.
party composition will definitely change the way you run D&D. So as a DM, I recommend knowing what your party have got before you get to your first session, so you can do your encounters according to what... I mean, you can do it. I mean, if you're a good DM or if you're even a learning DM, you can work on the fly.
Yeah.
You can have rolling tables and all that kind of thing. It's very, very handy to know what your players are gearing to play.
Yeah.
So
And what they have.
if you've got paladins and no healer, well, you might want to allow, you know, as a
Potions to be
bonus
cheaper.
action, you
Yeah.
can be
Yeah.
chugging a potion. It costs an action to give someone else a potion. If you've got a good group of healers, then you might say, okay, cool. It's now an action to drink a potion. You've
Yeah.
got the healers. I want them to have a job.
Yeah.
So if you want to drink your own potion, it's an action, because otherwise my healers that are taking that role
Yeah.
are removed of that job. So it's good to know what you're up against, and to work your rules
Change,
in
yeah.
according. Yeah.
One common thing I see a lot is with a lot of parties, they don't have rogues.
Yeah.
That seems to be
Yeah.
like a common class. If it's not a healer, chances are you might not have a rogue. So, like you were saying, include stuff that while not outright removing the party weakness, helps lessen it. So while they might not have a rogue, one party member might learn to use thieves' tools.
Yep.
So if they come across a locked chest or like a locked door, they're able to unlock it. Might not be likely, but at the same time, it's covering a weakness to some extent, and at the same time allowing you to add more in.
Or a
that they
magic
can do.
item that goes, homebrewed item, hey, this can open 3 locks of your choice. After that, it's gone, so they then have to decide, is this lock worth us using
Disarms
that?
all traps,
You know,
that kind of stuff, yeah.
So it becomes a party decision for, we don't have a rogue, we can't unlock this, do we use our 1 of 3?
Yeah.
You know,
If you,
it can then turn a downfall into an upside.
Yeah.
So you don't have to have all classes covered.
Yeah.
or all roles
Or all
covered.
roles.
But it
you
does
know.
make it easy for you as a DM and as players
Yeah.
to have those roles.
It does.
It is certainly easier,
Yeah.
but as a DM, try and include some stuff to lessen it, but
Yeah.
still keep it around because there's fun to be had.
Well, me as a DM, if you don't have a rogue, I'm happy to put some traps in and go, oh, sucks you don't have a rogue to get rid of
yeah.
that. Do you know what I mean? Like, let them know that, you know, your choices were poor to have 3
Yeah.
frontline fighters and no rogue.
Yeah.
Because if one of you had taken up that role, you could have been disarming this. I'm always going to remind you, I'm not going to kill you, but every now and then I'm going to throw a trap in.
And at the same time, there are probably ways they can improvise to detect traps, or at least trigger them and not take hit points. Are they gonna...
The shield wall.
Shield
maneuver.
wall.
Oh, that's a fire trap. We all pull up our shields. Who opens up the door? We use Mage Hand to open the door, and we like,
Yeah.
I'm a fan of encouraging,
yeah,
you know, well thought out
Plans.
plans to have.
that could go
Yeah,
terribly wrong.
you'll take half damage on that, but you know,
Yeah.
It's better than full
better
damage.
than full damage. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, party composition, always something good to think about before throwing random stuff at your party. Pacing. We're going to have a little bit of a chat about combat and pacing it. So things dying too fast or combat going too long and slowing down the pacing of your scenario.
Yep.
This can also include not only combat, but it can be social encounters, it can be travel. There's a whole kit and caboodle about your pacing. The first thing I want to touch on will be combat, and that's a matter of, as we spoke before, in solo versus horde. We also got a little bit into it in initiative. If you've got a solo character and they are dropped very, very quickly, that encounter was almost not worth having.
Yeah.
It's always good to have them have the ability to call out for some help.
Yep.
So if you notice, you know, your first character they've come up against, although you're like, yep, this is CR4, you know, my players are, you know, at the right level, their equipment's right, this should be a
Critical
good
hit.
fight, critical hit, they're down to like 10 hit
You
points, you're
win.
like, okay, if they automatically go, no, come on boys, out of the bushes. You didn't have people in the bushes,
Yeah.
but all of a sudden you're like, yep, I've got people in the bushes, and you
Yeah,
might
well,
throw
that's-
some extras on
Yeah,
the table. That is going to increase the time and the combat. I mean, they still have to run in from wherever they were, but it does
Instead of combat being done in like
2 seconds. Sometimes it's fun to allow them just go up, bang, you're dead. Well, yeah, we're stronger than we thought. I mean, it's not bad to give them that thought,
Yeah.
but when you're doing combat, it's really handy to have a backup plan.
Yeah.
On the flip side of that, if you're, you know, cool, I've got a pack of wolves. I'm going to throw 10 wolves at them, and you've been here for an hour fighting bloody wolves, and this one's dodgy, and you can't seem to get a hit to save your life, and you're rolling nat
there's,
ones,
you
and
know,
you've fallen over down a bloody...
Terry's in the corner getting eaten alive. Like,
Terry just seems to get hit every time,
Yeah, keeps
and there's
getting
still
up.
8 wolves that
Yeah.
haven't had their go yet. It can be drawn out, it can become boring, it can become monotonous, and you're just like, fuck, I just want these wolves
just
to
hit
get dead.
something. And, yeah.
Yeah, a good idea with that kind of thing is to be able to go, okay, Terry in the corner just slain one of the wolves. That was the pack leader.
Yeah.
The wolves that were attacking him take a step back. They let out a howl. The rest of the wolves back off a bit. The leader's just been killed. They're trying to look for who's the new pack leader. At that moment, you guys get the upper hand.
Yeah.
Or
you get a
Fight or
stab,
flight. Do you
or
run away?
yeah.
Like, yeah.
if it's too sluggish, pack leaders are dead. Some wolves see it as an opportunity to go their own way and run. Others an opportunity to become the new pack leader. So they're still gonna fight.
But they end up fighting amongst themselves. So all of a sudden the dynamic of that fight has changed.
Yeah.
And
3 of them have run, 2 of them are fighting for new pack leader, and one of them still got Phil here bailed up in a corner, you know,
I'm in the tree like,
yeah.
help me go.
because he didn't hear the call of the pack leader's dead.
He's focusing on the food in the tree.
It's always handy to have an out for that kind of combination. A good pacing thing I have is we'll stay with wolves. I'll throw a party of 4.
Yeah.
I'll throw 1 wolf out them each.
Yeah.
If the first 2 wolves are killed instantly, I'll have a howl go out from behind, and I might have 2 more come from each side. So now there's another 4.
Yeah.
And the guys at the front line that were like, we've got this, boys, and they're like, oh crap, there's more.
Yeah.
It'll give you good pacing. You'll be able to gauge the party's ability to kill, but it also stops that whole everything's dead.
it also helps reduce the amount of luck on the party side.
Yep.
Because, like you said, sometimes a party's just going to have a really good night and
yeah.
mow through everything.
Yep.
And so that encounter you've created is just going to disappear.
Yep. So not only is it the combat side that can get slow, the social side. So if you're at a party and they've got to find some information to be able to find how to get down in the dungeon, you've made it a sleuth kind of night. So everyone has to ask people, and Bob at the door knows the answer to this, but no one's asked Bob. Pass the answer on to Jill, who's also at the stairs, or
maybe give a hint.
Yeah.
Oh, you see Bob scratching and looking around,
like,
you know, around,
you're looking for one shady person, and someone's mentioned Bob's looked a bit ill all night.
Yeah.
He's been scratching at his side.
Yeah.
Give hints.
Give hints to speed up that kind of thing. If they're researching in a library and they've been there, you know, half an hour and they haven't quite rolled the right thing, miraculously turn the page and a key drops out, or there's a lot you can do to speed up that social side of thing to get the day going.
And also sometimes
Pardon me.
a social encounter, regardless of what it is, goes on for too long, and some people might not be into that. Some people are more into like the combat or anything else, and the people that are really loving that kind of encounter are having fun, but the others maybe not so much.
It's also, if you know your party very well, and you know Bob and Bill love combat and they're sitting over here yawning, you know, you might say, you know, you see a flyer on the wall, it says that they've got the best ale in town if you want to head to the pub while, you know, Jill and Jane are in there doing their research. So you now got a party split.
Or an arm wrestling contest.
And you go to the bar and there's an arm wrestling, or there's, I like my favourite one, which is drink smash.
Oh, yeah.
You've got to take on the barkeep. You drink, punch them. They drink, punch you. Whoever falls over first gets free drinks. It's there's a million ways to split your party without splitting your party, to give them the ability to...
The party doesn't have to be glued at the hip.
No, they don't have to be glued at the hip. And that's a good thing for pacing.
Pub crawl. Best kind of party.
It is the best kind. But yeah, there's a way to keep the pacing going for everyone. If you do see that there are certain people that like to fight, don't be afraid to give them a fight. It doesn't have to be a punch on. It can be a game, a pub crawl or whatever.
Yeah,
you know, there's a flyer on the wall that says rats need clearing from the sewer. Hey, you want to clear the rats while these nerds read? Or, you know, hey, I want to learn about reading. You go clear the rats. I'm going to start to be a nerd. You know, there's a little bit for everyone. Or if it's always combat heavy, there might be a, you know, first person to research this is going to get 100 gold. We need researchers to find this. Drop hints of some research if you research people, or you know,
missing kids in the area, and people are like, oh, this gives us like a lot of money, let's go that. And the combat people might be like, no, but they're like, they see the money.
Yeah,
they're like, yep.
Money is king indeed.
Or there might be a gambling den that they hear about, and they're like, you nerds can go find a kid. I'm going to go...
Bouncers needed for local nightclub, and you're like, let's do this. We'll be bouncers for the night. People are like, what?
don't be afraid with your pacing to add some fun events.
Yeah.
It will stop that whole, I need my guys to research this area, but not everyone's doing that research. You know, it doesn't take the whole party to read a book.
No.
So always remember to give the pacing to those that want to read and those that want to fight.
But it's interesting to give it to those people who don't want it. Hints as well.
Yeah.
Because
yeah.
I've given players books that have important information. They're just like, whatever, and they stash it away. And then later on, that information comes like, Helen, have you had this for? And they're
Since
like...
the beginning. When I was doing that bouncer job, I knocked a guy out, a bit of paper fell on the floor. I was like, that's mine as well as your money, and put it in my pocket. I didn't know it was the plans you were doing your research for while we were doing the bouncer job.
I didn't know that was what you're looking for. You should have asked me. Like,
yeah. There's a fun way to get around all of that kind of stuff, and make sure the research guys fail and come out disheartened, for the bouncers to come out going, oh yeah, does anyone need this bit of paper?
this is what we need. Like,
yeah.
well, you didn't ask. Like, you know, I'm the social kind of person.
Yeah. So yeah, pacing can be done quite fun. It should be fun for you. It should be fun for your party. Just be very mindful in combat as to what what your table is doing if you're the DM. Yeah. If they're starting to look like, oh, I'm waiting for, I've been waiting a while for my turn, this is getting a bit, speed it up.
Don't be afraid to also shave hit points off creatures.
Yeah.
A party member might nearly leave a creature with like 5 hit points left, and they had started the encounter with, I don't know, 20, 25. Just say it dies.
Yeah.
How do you want to do it?
The enemies. How do you want to do it? Do you cut off its head, or stab it, impale it?
You stab the wolf and you hit the wolf behind it.
Yeah. There's 100 ways to speed up your pacing, but don't be afraid to do that. Yeah. Again, and don't be afraid to slow it down.
Your swipe hits 2 creatures instead of 1 because both only had 2 hit points left. So it's an easy way to deal with that kind of stuff as well.
100%.
Especially if it's a crit. I enjoy the rule of if you crit and if the maximum goes over to the next creature and kills it, it's a twofer. Like, I love that kind of stuff.
Yeah. But pacing can make or break your table.
Yeah.
So definitely, as a DM, keep an eye on your players. They will let you know, how they're acting,
how they look.
And as a player, if you're sick of social, mention to your DM, hey, can we have a fight? Yeah. If you're fighting all the time and you want social, just say, hey, next session, do you mind if we throw some social somewhere? I'm hankering to get a bit of role playing happening. Yeah. Depends on your table, depends on your DM, but. DM's only thing I can say is keep an eye on your players. If they're falling asleep, as I've had him do on me.
that happens on a particularly long session, because that could also be a factor on why a player might fall asleep.
Long sessions,
social encounters also can drag on, which always happens though, because some people want to talk to, say, I talk to Jacob. We often have social encounters that last for a while, and people want to get progress on. But at the same time, we enjoy our social encounters, and we find it important, but other people might not. So, maybe talk after the session if it's getting too long. Also can work. So that's also something.
Yeah, I'm okay with that kind of thing, working the encounter out afterwards. You know, you two are having your conversation while that's happening. We'll get on with this, and what you've discussed we'll talk about afterwards. That way the people on the table are still getting their combat scenario or their action on the table, so it's not slugging down the table. But pacing very important.
It can make a fun encounter boring.
Definitely.
It can make a boring encounter fun if you're doing it right.
That's simple as it is.
We've had a discussion, I'll drop this here, we've had a discussion that we're going to do shorter versions. So we've noticed we like to ramble on a lot. We like to talk. We're going to do almost like a dot point version of what we've done already. So for 0 sessions, we'll break it down into very short. 0 session under that will be ... and dot. So that way you guys can just get the core information without listening to us
go off on tangents or talk about something else, or just keep talking about past experiences. We just want to like condense that so we can give you as much information in as little time as possible.
Yeah.
So you don't feel like you've wasted your time, or if you like rambling, you also have the option to listen to us.
Yeah, so we're going to keep these videos up as they are. We're not going to change them. This is a journey for us, so I don't care if 10 years down the track we can come back to this video and go, hey, look, remember when we said this? That's what we're about. We've gone from a ROG-Eye camera to a Logi camera now. Like I said, I'm not happy with this camera. I'm going to buy a proper... I've been researching cameras, so I'm going to spend a bit of cash and get a better camera. With that, we'll be learning how to use that camera. So
that's also
you know, we'll get a better camera, but there's learning behind that. We've got a dual microphone, dual Yetis. We're trying to figure out the best way to do dual Yeti to give the best quality. Today we used a single because last week's dual wasn't as clear as we wanted. We've got the Elgato key lighting. We've got 2 of those, but again, we're still working on where should we sit it. You know, we're trying different positions.
Sometimes it's dim, sometimes it's bright.
We're still going through a very
we've
experimental
got,
phase.
Yeah,
every week we try something a bit different.
Yeah, I mean, we're controlling what kind of lighting do we use. You know, we're trying different every time. We're trying different things. Like we say, I'd prefer you put a comment down below and let us know what you don't like. I don't care if you dislike every video we've put out and dislike this one as well. But if you're going to, give me a reason why.
Because we need to know what we need to improve on. If it's
just
you don't like our face, then
we can't change that. Yeah,
we can't change that. Yeah. But the feedback will be appreciated.
Yeah.
Do you dislike the lighting, audio?
The camera, we can work on that. If the background's too busy, I've thought that we might change that up, but it's steps at a time. We're not professionals. We are taking our first steps into this. It's going to come with time, and your help will help the channel. If you want this kind of content, then tell us what you want and we'll work on that. You've got 3 people here prepared to give you the content you want. We've got knowledge, we've got the time for it. Tell us what you're not happy with that we can change and we'll work on it. But anyway, thanks.